Tapisa Kilabuk is going to be with us right now. Can she come up, please? Indigenous Strategy Advisor and Community Liaison at In From the Cold. Tapisa has experienced the intergenerational cycle of trauma and has dedicated her life to understanding the effects of trauma on development and uses it to guide her work with the families at In From the Cold.
Tapisa Kilabuk. Hello, my name is Tapisa Kilabuk. I'm Inuk. My mother is originally from Nunavut, and my dad is a non-Indigenous man from Nova Scotia. I've made Treaty 7 territory my home for 10 years. Thank you for coming. I appreciate the support from my family, my friends, and my colleagues. Today I'm here to speak about intergenerational trauma from an Indigenous professional standpoint and from my lived experience as an Indigenous woman. I am the child of a residential school survivor. Here's a text definition of what intergenerational trauma is. A collective complex trauma inflicted on a group of people who share a specific group, identity, ethnicity, nationality, and religious affiliation. It is the legacy of numerous traumatic events a community experiences over generations and encompasses the psychological and social responses to such events. First Nations, Inuit, and Métis are the Indigenous groups of Canada who have had devastating health and wellness consequences due to historical oppression that started from first contact with European settlers. This picture is my mom and I. She's carrying me in a mautik, and the picture says, Miss Kilabuk is a native from the Frobisher Bay area living locally. So this picture was taken in Nova Scotia, and Frobisher Bay is actually the settler word that they use for the town that my mom is originally from. Examples of health and wellness consequences are from the spread of smallpox and the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in systems today. I want to talk about the structures of traumatization. This is a painting done by Kent Monkman that really just shows the influences that the church and the RCMP had taking children away from their parents. Number 1 says implementation of policies and legislation. A great example of that is the Indian Act. Number 2 is colonization, theft and removal of homelands. So being placed on reserves. Some Inuit people were moved to far north to have land claim in Canada. So a good example of that is Resglute. Number 3 is the suppression of language, ceremonies, and spirituality. So there were, once upon a time, banning the cultural activities such as powwow, sundance, tattooing, and speaking traditional language was in Canada. Number 4 is the assimilation through residential schools. John A. MacDonald said, kill the Indian in the child. And number 5 is the involvement in child welfare and displacement of Indigenous children. A great example of that is the 60 Scoop. Children being taken from homes after residential schools to be brought up with non-Indigenous foster parents, and today now is the Millennial Scoop. There are more kids in care in Canada right now than there were during the residential school era. I'm a person who did not go to residential school, but like so many others, my entire upbringing was affected by that dark place in Canadian history. The impact of residential school is intergenerational, and I am in the first generation to feel the effects of the trauma. So that's my mom. I remember taking this picture of her because I thought she looked pretty groovy. But this is how it happened to me. My nana, my mom, Jeannie Kilabuk, but not too long ago she was known as E72804 to the Canadian government. E is for Eskimo, 7 is for the region she was settled into, and 2804 is her ID number. My nana has been colonized. She went to a residential school from kindergarten to grade 5. My mom has shared very little about her experiences attending a residential school. But I myself, being a service provider, I know what type of traumatizing events can happen at a residential school. I've not pried her for any information. I respect her silence, but her words are not needed to show evidence to her experience. To this day, the effects of intergenerational trauma can still be seen in my mother. In no way have I ever thought to assess my mom as a patient, as a client, someone that I need to provide service to. I witnessed the trauma of the generation before me, and here are some of the things that she showed. I seen her depression and anxiety. I seen her anger. I seen her have issues with identifying her feelings. I seen her low self-esteem and shame. I've seen her self-harm. I've seen her suicidal ideation, and I've seen her substance use. Unfortunately, my mother's story is not rare. These symptoms are prevalent in the majority of Indigenous population in Canada. Direct survivors of these experiences often transmit the trauma to later generations when they don't recognize or have opportunity to address their own traumas. This is a picture of my sisters and I, and my 2 children, and my parents. Over the course of time, these behaviors, often destructive, became normalized within the family and their community, leading to the next generation suffering the same problems. My sisters and I have become products of intergenerational trauma. To put it in perspective for you, this is how my sisters and I dealt with it. 3 out of 5 of us had become teen mothers. 4 of us lived high-risk lifestyles of drug and alcohol addictions. 3 of us has had police involvement. All 5 of us have been abused, whether it be sexual, mental, verbal, and or physical. 2 of us have been diagnosed with mental health issues. 2 of us graduated high school. All 5 of us have lived in poverty. 2 of us have had child welfare involvement. 4 of us stayed in unhealthy relationships because we thought we had to, and this is how we coped. Even though we had to face adversity, that's not who we are. We are strong, innocent women. We are starting to find out that there is more to life than suffering. I'm no longer in survival mode. I've been taught how to thrive. I'm not going to lie, it hasn't been easy. I've done a lot of self-exploration, realization, and acceptance to get where I am today. I have no shame in who I am as an Indigenous woman anymore. I can walk comfortably in my brown skin, but I didn't just do it for me. I did it for these 2. These are my humans, Hannah and Lucas, aged 10 and 2 days, and 8. They were right by my side when going through hardships. I've tried to hide as much as possible, but they experience what it's like to go without essentials. But we held each other when going through the worst. And even though we are okay now, it took us most of our lives to get where I am today. To be Indigenous was something we didn't practice. I was ashamed to be who I was, so I didn't practice in any traditional ways of living. In the last year, my family and I have been accepted by many First Nations people in that they have shared their spirituality with me. They shared their music, dance, food, and their elders and their knowledge keepers. I take that knowledge and I smudge with my children every morning. That to me is being successful. We are accepted. I do have to say, it is not culturally safe to assume that everyone within a group, community, family, or individual has been impacted by intergenerational trauma or by the same experiences as others. It can be stigmatizing and can overlook resilience, strength, and persistence of culture in individuals and communities. Acknowledge the individual's ability to survive and even grow from adversity. Nakrami means thank you in my language. Here are just a few photos of the people that have supported me through my journey, my natural supports. The people in my life that taught me how life can be lived. They show me how to love and to be loved unconditionally. They continue to give me strength, show me courage, push me to go further to reach my full potential. I remember teachers from elementary school to post-secondary who have supported me. The leadership team at In From the Cold, also my colleagues in the serving industry. I truly couldn't have done it without you all. And that's, my family and I were involved with the Reconciliation Bridge ceremony this year. And I just want to say, sometimes life can become too much to handle. It overwhelms me a great deal and I feel lost. The reconciliation that I need to do is with the survivors in my life and my children. This is an ongoing process through private talk, sharing my story, and prayer. Reconciliation is for everyone, and that reconciliation is the journey.